Hi ghouls, welcome back to Freaky Flick Friday. Here's a list of the horror movies releasing for the second week of July, where you can watch them, so let's talk horror. Releasing on video on demand on the 8th is Ziam. When the world has succumbed to their hunger and overrun by zombies, a Muay Thai fighter must fight them off in order to save his beloved. Releasing in theaters on the 11th is Abraham's Boys, a Dracula story. Max and Rudy Van Helsing constantly lived under their father's strict rules, thinking he was just slightly paranoid until they found out the truth behind his past with Dracula. Everything changed, and now they're caught between a legacy of violence and secrets that they were never supposed to know, and now the danger is coming for them. Releasing on the 11th on video on demand is Meathook. This horror comedy follows Jordan, who's struggling with the aftermath of the massacre that led to the murder of her friends by an infamous serial killer. But when a string of similar murders start to occur, she gets help from her true crime podcast friend in order to help her face her past. Releasing on video on demand is Forgive Us All. This Western horror is about a virus that has turned people into deranged cannibals, and a grieving mother has isolated herself on a mountain cabin to take refuge until a desperate wounded stranger arrives at her doorstep, and she must decide whether or not she should help him. But the only way to get help is through the infested cannibal forest. Releasing on Shudder on the 11th is Push. A pregnant realtor is trying to sell a cursed home and must survive the night when a deranged client shows up to her open house, forcing her to go into premature labor, and now she must escape before she gives birth. 11th in limited theaters is ShudderSkillhouse, when 10 influencers are lured into a sinister content home and forced to perform deranged social media challenges. Each competitor must gain as many views as possible, and the person with the lowest number dies. Releasing on the 11th on video on demand and limited theaters is Hot Springs Shark Attack. In a small hot springs town in Japan, an ancient shark is awakened and terrorizes the local hot springs facilities, and as the threat escalates, the townspeople must band together and go into battle against the shark. Releasing on video on demand on the 14th is Trick or Treat. This is set during Halloween weekend, and Carmen and Samuel decide to take a few days away and go to a secluded villa. But this obviously turns into a nightmare when 3 mysterious youngsters show up at the doorstep, masked, with the classic question, trick or treat, setting off a terrifying and cruel game. Those are the horror movies releasing for the second week of July. Like always, I'll have the full list over on my Letterboxd for you to check out. Be sure to check out last week's Freaky Flick Friday so you know what is releasing this week, and I'll be back next week with the third week of July horror movie releases.